So next example is going to be for a knee issue. So let's just say we found out with this knee issue that you can't tolerate squatting full range of motion with the normal weights. So the first modification we can make with the squat is to keep the same squat variation, same sets and reps, but just like we did with the bench press, let's set the pins or the safeties at a position that lets us get down low enough but stops us right before where the pain really starts. So we can still hit the same weights, we're just modifying the range, same weight, same sets and reps, we're just modifying the range of motion. So we're gonna do like a pin squat. So let's say for this, oddly enough, just in the bench press, even though we're not really loading our knees much, just having your knees bent and having just enough, just that leg drive with the bench is very sensitive. Knee doesn't like that. Well, we can still keep doing the same bench press, but let's just elevate our feet. So just straightening out your knee so it's not in an angry position. Sometimes even those little things like that may not be really the driving force behind whatever's aggravating your knee, but they can still add just enough irritant and keep your knee sensitive. So even modifying little things like that. It's just like when you have shoulder pain with bench pressing, sometimes the squat rack is adding just enough more to it that we might need to modify things that don't seem so obvious to that. So in this particular situation, we're going to just do feet up bench press just to take that little bit of pain sensitivity out and then keep the bench press programming the same. RDL, since the leg's fairly stiff in this situation, it's not really bothering it, so we don't have to touch that. We can keep with that. So let's say with the deadlift though, there's enough knee bend that our knee doesn't like that position, but we found we can just go ahead and do a stiff leg deadlift and just not bend the knees as much, and that's tolerable. So we can keep our deadlift stress going, same sets and reps, we're just gonna go to a stiff leg deadlift instead of a regular deadlift. So overhead pressing, no problem with that in this situation. Now, if just loading your knee and standing on it in that position, it didn't like it for whatever reason, then the next obvious thing is we go to some form of a seated overhead press. So that way it just takes the pain out of our knee, but we're still working the overhead, getting the overhead press stress in. So, and then high bar squats, again, since the full squatting was not tolerable, we can go to maybe like a modified range of motion split squat or lunge. So where you get in that split position, you can put like a little block or a pad under your knee that stops you from going full range of motion, so that way you work down to the edge of the pain but not into it, just like we do with like the pin squats or the pin bench press. So that could be an option, because it's going to be likely lighter anyway, so maybe your knee tolerates that change, still lets you get some leg training in, but also modifies the symptomatic portion of that. So, and then for day 3, just like with the bench press, so we're still going to try to keep our normal weights and sets and reps with a modified range of motion here. And this one, we're going to try to see if we can still work through that full range of motion, but desensitize it. So let's say we can tolerate, again, a certain percentage of our normal weights, like maybe 50 to 60, 70% is tolerable, but anything above that's too painful. Or we can slow it down to that 3:03 tempo where we go 3 seconds down, 3 seconds up, really slow reps. Keep the sets and reps the same, just doing that slower tempo with a lighter weight, giving us time and a chance to kind of feel out how we want to adjust our positioning, and also gradually work through that and desensitize the pain with that. And even if we can't tolerate the full squat, doing it slow like that, you can just feel out as slow as you want to go, and you can just naturally modify your range of motion that way. And over time, ideally, like week after week, you'll find that eventually you're getting lower and lower, and eventually you're squatting full range of motion. So even these slow tempos kind of inherently let you modify the range of motion anyways if you need to. So, and then again with the bench press, not that you would have to modify it, but let's just say in this situation, weirdly, the knee just doesn't like being bent in that exact position. So we could do another form of a straight-legged bench press and do a floor press, where we take that sensitivity out. And then pull-ups, no issue there, since we're not really loading our knee with pull-ups. So, and then again, this can be plenty good, and then we just progress these things that we had to modify back to normal, keep training. Optionally, if we felt like we needed to add in some local capacity builders, some good options can be Nordic hamstring curls, reverse Nordics, which are where you're on your knees and you're just leaning backwards, so you're really working your quads more, or some form of a sissy squat. And if you can't tolerate the full sissy squats, you can always just modify your range of motion, or even put a box or something in front of you and just lean forward with your knees and just tap it, and then just increase that range of motion over time. And if you have access to the machines, doing like leg extensions and leg curls, so those can be some good things to add in. So here's an example of how you can modify a strength training program to help address a knee issue.